Welcome to the London Free Press Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Gilbert. The London Knights begin their regular season this Friday at home against Flint. So today I'm getting a preview of the OHL season with London Free Press sports reporter Ryan Pyette to find out what fans can look forward to this year. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Good, Rachel. Thanks. It's a busy time with everything
Yes,
going on, right?
I bet. Yeah, you're out all the time at all these games. So let's just start with the Knights. How do we look this season? What are we kind of expecting? Are we expecting the same as last year? Any differences in terms
Good
of
again.
performance?
They're
Yeah.
good again.
Okay. That's what we like to hear.
This is like this is going to be an excellent team, and they won the OHL title last year. It just depends on who comes back. If somebody sticks in the NHL, it could change everything. I remember 10 years ago, Oli Mata stuck with the Pittsburgh Penguins at 19, and the Knights were hosting the Memorial Cup, and that kind of threw them for a loop, and they were kind of chased that all year. How do we get an anchor defenseman? And they made a bunch of trades, and it didn't end up working out for them. But that's the impact of one guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one guy, Easton Cowan, is with the Leafs. Lots of people are talking about that. Is he going to come back? Do you think? Will he play with the Knights at all this year? Are we going to see him here at Bud Gardens?
Well, I typed into my computer all the possible scenarios that might happen.
Okay.
Got the calculator out. Leaned on some math experts, and it just comes down to if they think that now is he going to play on the top two lines on the Leafs? Well, you look at who they have. No, he's not going to. Could he play on the fourth line and make the league minimum or whatever the rookie contract, 900,000 or whatever in the Leafs? You look at that, it makes sense, right? Because you look at the Leafs salary cap and they pay all those forwards all that money, and it would be nice to have a good guy, a good player at and the OHL MVP is usually ready for the pros. Like that's always been my assessment of it. I just think of Wyatt Johnson a couple of years ago. He went to Dallas and impressed them in training camp, and he's one of the. I think he got picked. TSN picked him one of the top 50 players in the league or something like that. And a year or two later, so I believe in Easton Cowan. I think he's going to really help the Maple Leafs, and it's just a matter of when. And will this be a thing for the Knights? A soap opera a bit, like waiting, like I think it will be, because I think we've gone through that before, and I think it's going to be he'll get his 10 games probably, unless he proves during this during the training camp that he's not ready. But he's fast enough and he's tenacious enough. He can play at that level. It's just, do they want a 19-year-old playing on the fourth line in Toronto, knowing that he's the future? He's the top prospect in the organization. So you have to. They're going to ask these questions, and it's going to go on, and I'm sure it'll drive Knights fans crazy. And every time he has a -2 game in Toronto, they're going to say, "Will he be back?" And we've dealt with that before from various different players over the years, and I expect the same this year.
So we'll just wait and see, basically. Wait and see.
Nobody has any answers.
No, we don't know.
Brad Treliving, Craig Berube, and a bunch of other guys.
Yeah. Now the Knights are missing a lot of players to begin this season. So let's start with Landon Sim, because he's out with a shoulder injury right now, right?
Yeah, and so I feel like Landon Sim could be this year's Max McHugh. He if you remember what Max brought last year to the team as an overager, he was played a tough, hard game. He was a leader, and he actually scored a pretty good amount. They didn't need to be the top scorer, but he had a great year that way. Mm-hmm. And I think Landon Sim, I talked to Landon before he left for New Jersey. He felt the same way. I could be a Max McHugh prototype. He looks bigger and stronger than I've ever seen him. In the one exhibition game he played with the Knights, he got 2 goals and 4 points, and you're like, it's just an exhibition game, but you're like, well, you see what he could kind of do this. And so, that it's terrible for Landon. He's had injury problems in the past. He had hip surgery before last year and missed half the year, and then he got suspended, and missed the final. So it's a big year for him, and it's terrible for him and the team that he's going to miss probably a month with the shoulder injury that he suffered trying to get a contract with the Devils, right? So maybe what can happen is what happened to Max McHugh is he earned contract with the Columbus Blue Jackets with a great season last year. And you hope Landon, when he finally gets going, he can kind of have that kind of impact on the Knights.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the other people that are missing. We're missing about 10 players right now. What's going on?
Yeah. Jacob Julian and Will Nickel got sent back, and that's really because you're looking at mostly a junior B lineup if you're missing like 10, 12 guys. And there's a lot of guys that people know, like the whole power play. Julian comes back, that helps. But the whole power play that you remember from last year, Bonk, Barkey, Cowan, Casper Haltonen, Sam Dickinson, they're all gone, right? And we have no idea. Just like Cowan, we don't know when or if they're coming back. We expect Barkey and Bonk. Barkey had an illness and he missed training camp, but he went to Philadelphia. He felt well enough to go to Philadelphia. I don't know how much he's going to do before he gets sent back here. Bonk, obviously at 19 years old, Oliver Bonk's going to be a tremendous NHL defenseman, like all-star player, but we'll see. They'll probably give him a few more exhibition games. Maybe he gets the NHL game. I don't know, but once he's back, then you start to see the pieces coming back into place. But as what's happened with the Knights for many years, so we've gone through this like a broken record. They're not going to have the same team in September and early October that they will later on, and it could be rough. It could be rough sledding they play, Flint back to back out of the gate, and Flint's a good team. So it could be. I've seen teams go 0-6, 0-4, 0-5-1 to start the season with the Knights, and they end up competing and winning 45, 50 games. So
later in the season,
it's hard to get too bothered by it, but it's just a fact of life. They don't have the team that everyone expects them to have right now.
Sure. And we got too many imports and too many overagers right now too. So we're going to, that'll change as well as the season goes on, right?
Yeah. So if you want to break down the overage, so every team can dress 3 20-year-old players. And by 20, I mean this year, 2004 born. And so you have kind of who's supposed to penciled in as the starting goalie, Owen Wilmore. He's one of them. So, he's going to play this weekend. Alec Leonard, a real good defenseman. I think he's going to be one of the better defensemen in the league. Like he's coming off, a broken ankle that he missed a lot of the playoffs and obviously the Memorial Cup. So he's hungry. He looks in great shape. And then you have obviously Landon Sims out. So that pushes it down the road. And you got Jacob Julian's back. So we expect Jacob to play and obviously be a real contributor, first line center for the team as a 20-year-old back from the Jets. And then the wild card in both the import and the overager is Ruslan Gazizov. He got a tryout with the Ducks in Anaheim. And if he gets sent back to London, then there's got to be a lot of decisions to be made, because if you look at the imports, you can only carry 2. So he's 20, like another overager, and that gives the Knights 5 with Sim hurt. And the import situation here stacks up like this. So Casper Haltonen with San Jose, if he comes back, he will definitely be on the Knights, because what a great goal scorer he is. Yeah. They brought in his countryman, Finnish forward, Jesse Nurme, who's at the Islanders camp, but he's a World Junior caliber player for Finland, so an excellent player. And so then you got Gazizov, and then you have a young Russian, Gleb Semenov, who's had visa issues, so he hasn't been able to come to camp. It would have been great to see him come here, and even if he didn't play here this year, he's still a young guy. He's only 17. Yeah. So you have those 4 guys. So 2 of the 4 guys, and it basically depends on the Finns. If Haltonen and Nurme come back, then those should probably be the 2 guys. But because Gazizov, and to use the import and an overage spot on one player, that doesn't happen too often, right?
Right.
So he's been a great player for the Knights, a great offensive player, one of the more fun players to watch on the team. But if he gets sent back to the OHL, I would see some of those imports, something has to give on that, right? Yeah. So that's where that situation's at, and you got to look at when you're looking to move guys of good caliber, you got to look at, okay, what do the other teams have? Do they have those 3 spots filled for the overagers? Do they have those 2 import spots filled? It gets very hard to make deals.
One last thing with the Knights before we kind of look around the season. Dale Hunter could reach a big milestone this season too with 1,000 wins, right? What's he at right now?
It would happen late in the year, and he's got to get a lot at 951. So he needs 49. If you win 45 to 50 games, you're one of the top teams in the league. So right at the end of the year, like he did a couple of years ago in Windsor, when he got to, was it 900? They just add up over the years. I think it was 900. So, that's, I'm sure the team wants to get him that. And but if they do, that means they're one of the top teams in the league, 100-point team. And
last year they won about 50 games last year.
Yeah, they win, and that's how he's got there so fast, right? He would obviously
they could do it. It could happen.
He could be there without COVID, right? Like if COVID didn't cancel a bunch of stuff, he'd already be there. But he's such a good coach. Everybody I talk to says he knows the game inside out. We know his history. He's a winner. He's hungry from last year. 20 seconds left to lose to Saginaw in the Memorial Cup. Those guys take that hard. I bet you it was a summer of digging in to work hard for Dale Hunter and thinking how he can make the team better. So and you'll see that effect from him on the bench this year for sure.
Yeah. Let's look around the league a little bit. Who are the Knights' biggest rivals this year? Even Saginaw, who won the Memorial Cup. What are they looking like? Who should we be watching for this year?
Yeah, Saginaw is going to be good again. They got Zane Perek and Michael Misa, both franchise type players. So, and they got the afterglow of winning, so they'll be good. I think Windsor couldn't keep the puck out of their net this year. If they can do that this year, they're going to score like crazy, and I think they could be the biggest mover up, which is always exciting for London Windsor fans because they hate each other, right? So that'll be good. And Flint, I expect Flint to be better. Erie, I think so. A lot of the American teams, really. I think Erie's going to be a strong team this year. And then on the other side, in the East, obviously the Knights don't play them as much, but you get to the finals. I wouldn't be surprised if Oshawa's back. They're a real strong team. Brampton really impresses me. I think they've impressed everybody. They were ranked 2 out of the gate, right in front of the Knights. What will they get, Rachel? Will they get fans? My history with Brampton and GTA junior hockey, I don't see it. So which is a shame because you see what happened in Brantford last year. The team moved a good team from Hamilton to Brantford, and the people embraced it in Brantford like everyone expected they would.
So this is the Steelheads. This is their first season in Brampton, right? This year?
they had a rent dispute with the old Hershey Center, Paramount Fine Foods arena, and they said, okay, well, if we don't want to pay that or that sort of thing, and they moved to Brampton, which is an empty arena, but they've had pro hockey and junior hockey there. I could tell you, I've been in the rink there where it was me and the ushers kind of thing. At the game, right?
Oh, no.
So that's to see the London Knights, right? 500 people or whatever in the building. So I really hope
expecting them to be a good team this year.
Yeah, they're going to be, and that's the thing.
That'll attract more fans.
I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah,
so we'll see. I'm sure for the first couple of games they'll find a way to market to get people, but I want to see in January, February, March if they're getting people. And they're a great team. They should be, they're one of the best teams in the country. They shouldn't be hidden. Hopefully they get the support that the players deserve. Porter Martone, fantastic player, like a Corey Perry type player in junior, should have a fantastic 100-point season. Oshawa's great. Beckett Seneke, number 3 overall pick. He's a fantastic player. And there's Brantford's good. Merrick Vanacker, very, very strong team there too. And and Barry should be good. Barry was kind of like, it'd be like a Windsor thing where they were like 8th or they were lower, but I expect them to jump way back up into the second half. And there'll be some teams that are bad this year that we don't really expect, right? Like Kitchener's kind of rebuilding, the Sioux's kind of rebuilding. Owen Sound, always tough. I think they're going to struggle this year. We don't expect to see that, but I don't think there's going to be like the Niagaras would win like 15, 17 games. I think it's going to be very competitive OHL, like where there's no weak sisters that you just pound on kind of thing.
Okay. All right. We have a new OHL commissioner this year. I know we talked about that at the end of last season too. What do we expect from this new commissioner? Any changes, any differences? Has anything happened so far? Anything you foresee?
Yeah, so I think what Brian Crawford's going to do, he's taking over for a guy, David Branch, that ran the league for 45 years and had his own way of doing things and really successfully built this league. And I think what Brian Crawford's going to do is he's going to take. He told us when he talked to the media a while back, and he said, I come from golf. He was a football player. He worked at Golf Canada. So he has that mindset, that business mindset, but he's going to take a look at everything and see where there's inefficiencies or things that he'd like to improve. Like we asked him, like, are you going to handle the discipline? And he wasn't sure about that. The league's still looking for a director of player safety kind of thing. So I think he's going to bring it in, modernize it a bit. I think there's going to be, it has been done under David Branch, but I think he's going to be, to have a younger guy like that and to have a fresh kind of set of eyes on things, I think is going to serve the OHL well. Yeah. And there's already you start to see, just a new energy kind of thing, right? It's not the same old. And not to say David Branch wasn't forward thinking, but it was the same old for a long time. Right. So I think
every so often you get a new leader, right? So
yeah, 100%. And that's you see it in politics, you see it in business, and I feel like he has the sports background that, and I love that he comes from football. He played for Queens, which is incidentally is playing at Western Homecoming this weekend.
Oh, there you go.
His alma mater, and I think he'll bring a different perspective, which I think will be great because it's a challenging time in junior hockey. There's a lot of moving parts, and so it'll be interesting to see what he can do.
The CHL as a whole has, speaking of changes and moving parts, replaced the top prospects game, right? So what's going on with that?
Yeah, and so Brian Crawford's walking into this. Dan McKenzie, the president of the CHL, making some different things happen. So, and I think what we're seeing, Rachel, is the CHL wants to get back those great American players. In London, we have Pat Kane, Matthew Tkachuk, Max Jones, Tyler Parsons, and that. We want. It's been low. I think the Knights have had the fewest Americans they've had in 20 years on their team. So they want to find a way that they can attract some of those young guys and say, hey, the NCAA with their NIL agreements is kind of like their argument that CHL players are paid professional players doesn't really hold water anymore when you got these guys signing endorsement deals and getting more money than certainly the CHL players ever got. And right. So I think what's happening here is you would hope that the top prospects game is going to be a start of a kind of a partnership. It'll always be arm's length, but so what's going to happen in this prospects game, instead of the top prospects, which were all the top 45 CHL eligible NHL draft prospects, they're going to have a CHL group, and they're going to play the American under 18 team, which, as everybody knows, they're based out of Plymouth. They used to be in Ann Arbor, but they recruit the top kids in the U.S. and they try to push them to the NCAA. Well, maybe if they're playing in these prospect games, maybe they'll look and say, hey, after I'm drafted in the NHL, I'll go, the way some of these guys did. John Carlson, it was one example for London. I'll come play in the OHL for my final year. And then the one thing that I think is going to happen, that we're seeing all the signs of it, is young CHLers, young OHL players, if they're not getting the, if they can't sign a contract or they want to play in the NCAA, and the Americans specifically are the ones that would like to play in the NCAA because that's where their home is, right? Right. Getting a scholarship to Western or whatever, but you don't live there, they might want to go home. So getting an NCAA opportunity after playing in the CHL, not having that canceled. When you're 15, 16 years old, you got to make a big decision whether to play in the OHL or try to stay for the NCAA. I remember having to make that as a young man, and it's way too early to have to make that decision. Yeah. So it would be nice if they set the rules up so that if you played, half a season or 20 games or maybe a year and a half and it wasn't working out in the OHL, that you could, play 3 or 4 years in the NCAA after that.
Yeah, more opportunity, right? Okay, well, the Knights will have Flint at home on Friday. You said Flint's a good team, so this should be a really good game for us to watch.
Yeah, and there's new big score clock at the Bud Gardens.
Oh yeah,
and it's not going to be called Bud Gardens for much longer. And
yeah.
The Knights have new gloves that have a little bit of green on them, so that'll be something interesting to see too.
Cool. All right. Well, lots of changes this year, lots to talk about today. So we're definitely going to watch your reporting. I'm sure we'll get an update with you about the Knights and all things OHL a bit later in the season. Thank you, Ryan.
Hey, no problem.